Good morning, club members. Here are 5 developments worth keeping an eye on. First, let's look at a curious paradox unfolding across the American technology sector. Since early 2026, tech companies have laid off nearly 140,000 workers. At the very same time, these same firms are spending record amounts of money on artificial intelligence. The technology industry now accounts for more than 1/3 of all announced job cuts across the country. On the surface, corporate leaders claim that AI is making their businesses far more efficient. They suggest that intelligent software is allowing them to operate smoothly with fewer people. Looking closely at the data, however, reveals a rather different story. 4 major giants, including Amazon, Oracle, Meta, and Microsoft, account for nearly 50,000 of those recent cuts. That represents about 6% of their total corporate workforce. Yet, market analysis shows that blaming AI for job cuts does not impress investors. Companies linking layoffs to AI saw their stock prices underperform the market index by nearly 10% over the following month. That is a significantly worse result than for companies citing traditional business pressures. Why would Wall Street react so coldly? Economists suggest that AI is simply acting as a convenient cover story. During the pandemic, many technology firms embarked on a massive hiring spree. Citing new technology allows executives to trim payrolls today without admitting to past overhiring. In fact, both Amazon and Microsoft have explicitly stated that AI did not drive their workforce reductions. The broader reality is that AI is not taking over human jobs just yet. A major study of 15 million daily workplace interactions offers a clear picture of what is happening. The technology is certainly widespread, appearing in occupations that cover nearly 90% of employment. Yet, in the typical job, workers use AI for only 1/5 of their daily tasks. Only 3% of occupations, such as software testers and document managers, use AI for more than 3/4 of their work. In fact, fewer than 10% of AI interactions involve automated tasks from start to finish. In most cases, employees use the software as a collaborative partner. They use it to draft text, summarize long reports, or brainstorm fresh ideas. Back in 1987, the economist Robert Solow noticed something similar with computers. He remarked that the computer age was visible everywhere except in the productivity numbers. We seem to be living through a new version of that exact paradox today. A powerful new technology does not transform an organization overnight. Before a company can harvest real productivity gains, management must completely rethink how work gets done. That process takes time, patience, and trial and error. In the meantime, specialized AI startups are hiring rapidly, and overall national unemployment remains low at 4.2%. The recent wave of tech layoffs is not proof that algorithms have replaced human labor. It is simply the awkward growing pains of an industry learning how to use its newest tools. Now for our second topic of the morning. Moving from tech budgets to Washington, we turn to political power and private profit. At the center of this story is an unprecedented move involving Donald Trump's social media platform. The business is selling advance access to his posts for $100,000 a month. That is a huge sum for a social media feed. Yet for automated computer networks trading on financial markets, receiving those posts just a few milliseconds early is enormously valuable. Most smaller traders cannot afford such a fee. The service targets major investment firms with the computing power and artificial intelligence to act instantly. Trump has over 12 million followers on his platform and holds a 41% stake in the business. When he speaks publicly about major companies like Apple, Amazon, Dell, or Nvidia, market prices often move in seconds. The platform offers a direct software link, known as an Application Programming Interface, or API for short. Put simply, an API is a digital bridge that lets two computer systems talk to each other without human delay. By connecting directly to his feed, high-speed algorithms can buy or sell shares before ordinary investors even read the headline. In effect, privileged access to presidential thoughts is being sold as a commercial product. This subscription feed is only part of a broader financial picture. Since January 2025, estimates suggest Trump's net worth has grown by anywhere from $1 billion to $4 billion. His liquid assets sit inside a revocable trust managed by his eldest son, Donald Trump Jr. While there is no direct proof that Trump tells his brokers which shares to buy, analysts have noted suspicious patterns. Investments in individual stocks or industry indices have repeatedly aligned with public statements made just days later. You might naturally assume that federal rules prevent a president from profiting in this way. But here is the surprising part. US conflict of interest laws ban most executive branch officials from holding financial ties to entities affected by their work. Yet those conflict of interest rules explicitly exclude the president and the vice president. On top of that, a Supreme Court ruling in 2024 granted presidents broad immunity for official acts. That leaves the emoluments clause of the US Constitution as the primary restriction on monetizing public office. Enforcing that clause rests entirely with Congress, which currently shows no interest in taking action. Looking ahead, opposition politicians have promised corruption probes if they win control of Capitol Hill in November. Mind you, their past record on investigations is mixed. There is also little confidence that the Department of Justice or the Securities and Exchange Commission would comply with congressional subpoenas. In the longer term, critics worry about how far this trend might go. Trump has already discussed taking federal government stakes in major artificial intelligence firms. Without clear conflict of interest laws, some wonder what would stop a president from taking personal stakes as well. For now, the monetization of presidential access continues openly in broad daylight. The most striking element of the story is not simply the money involved. It is that under current rules, almost all of it remains legal. Now, for our third story today, we turn from American wealth to British politics. Andy Burnham has taken office as Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. On his very first morning in Downing Street, he visited a charity for the homeless. He promised to end rough sleeping across the country by expanding the Housing First scheme he ran as Mayor of Greater Manchester. That model provides a permanent home first, before offering extra support for health and employment. That early visit offers a clear window into his overall plan for Britain. He wants to take policies tested in his home region and roll them out across the nation. In Manchester, he brought buses back under public regulation, created community health networks, and built practical job pathways for young people. He has also pledged to oversee a massive council house building programme driven by local authorities rather than London bureaucrats. His approach rests on a distinct vision of power. The central government in London defines national missions and provides the funding. Local councils and regional mayors then take that money and deliver the actual services in their own communities. On paper, this sounds like a welcome shift for a heavily centralised country. Whitehall officials in London rarely grasp the daily realities in towns like Rochdale or Sunderland. Local leaders are much closer to the residents who rely on public transport and local care. Yet moving from a city experiment to national governance creates an immediate tension. A strategy that worked inside one metropolitan region might look very different when expanded across an entire nation. In Manchester, Burnham built a pragmatic reputation by partnering with private investors to drive local growth. Running the national treasury, though, demands far tougher fiscal choices. His initial announcements in office reveal how eager he is to tackle the cost of living. He has moved to cut value-added tax on electricity bills and cap bus fares nationwide. Quick measures like these are popular with voters, but they carry high costs. Policy analysts warn that sweeping subsidies from London could quickly lead to severe financial indigestion. There is also a deeper operational challenge. Devolution only succeeds if local authorities have the technical skills to spend large sums wisely. Town halls need trained negotiators, smart procurement teams, and strong financial managers to deal effectively with private partners. If local institutions lack those basic capabilities, handing over authority will not improve public services. It will simply shift financial risk onto local councils that are unprepared to handle it. Burnham is betting that central resources and local knowledge can form a self-reinforcing system. Cities like Camden and Manchester have already shown how local teams learn by doing. London acts as the investor of first resort, while local councils refine what works on the street. It is a bold attempt to rethink how the British state operates. But generosity from the centre quickly runs into the reality of tight public balance sheets. The new Prime Minister has staked his political identity on the idea that local control works best. Now he must prove that decentralisation can deliver real results without running out of money. Leaving British devolution behind, our fourth topic takes us to the Middle East. The Israeli military is preparing for a major operation in the West Bank after a deadly clash in a small village. The fighting broke out in Tel, a village near the city of Nablus. By the time the violence ended, 2 Israelis and several Palestinians were dead. An Israeli army officer and a security worker from a nearby settlement lost their lives. 4 other Palestinians were injured during the clash, 3 of them critically. As is so often the case in the region, both sides give contrasting accounts of how the violence started. The governor of Nablus stated that a group of armed Jewish settlers entered Tel, assaulting residents and damaging property. He said local residents stepped in to defend their home. The Israeli military gives a different account. It says Palestinians initiated the confrontation. According to the military, a Palestinian seized a settler's weapon and opened fire. Whatever triggered the first shot, the response from Israeli forces came quickly. Soldiers raided a hospital in Nablus and arrested 2 people they suspect were involved in the fight. The military also imposed a strict curfew on Tel, as well as on a nearby settlement named Shiloh. That curfew effectively locked down daily life while search operations continued. Now, senior ministers in Israel's cabinet are demanding far more aggressive action across the area. Prime Minister Netanyahu's government has backed ongoing settlement expansion, and far-right cabinet members are pushing for severe measures. Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich called for Tel and neighbouring villages like Iraq Burin and Beit Furik to be treated harshly. He argued they should look like the refugee camps in Nablus and Tulkarm, where widespread military demolitions have displaced thousands of people. National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir went even further. He called for the villages to be treated like Beit Hanun in Gaza, a town that was completely razed during military operations. Why is a single village clash escalating so quickly into plans for a major military campaign? To answer that, we have to look at the broader pressure building across the West Bank. The clash in Tel comes against a backdrop of relentless settlement expansion and rising settler violence. Figures from the United Nations show that settlers carried out more than 1,800 attacks last year. Those attacks caused casualties or property damage, displacing 1,663 Palestinians. That pattern has only accelerated in 2026. In the first 4 months of this year alone, the UN logged another 761 settler attacks. Those incidents displaced a further 1,988 Palestinians from their land. When you put these pieces together, you see how local conflicts rapidly fuel wider operations. Attacks by settlers and expansion of settlements create daily friction. When clashes turn deadly, far-right politicians use the moment to push for mass demolitions and heavy troop deployments. The immediate consequence is not quiet, but further instability. As military plans expand, thousands more civilians face displacement, deepening a cycle of conflict that shows no sign of ending. Turning finally from security operations in the West Bank to the global race for clean technology. For more than a century, Detroit and the American auto industry excelled at building petrol engines. Today, traditional engines are giving way to batteries, software, and electronic systems. That shifts the whole automotive battle away from mechanical engineering toward chemistry and supply chains. Advanced batteries are rapidly becoming essential building blocks for the modern economy. They power consumer electronics, energy storage grids, commercial drones, and artificial intelligence data centers. But electric vehicles consume by far the largest share of those batteries. If a country wants a strong domestic battery industry, it needs a thriving electric vehicle market. It is really that simple. An electric vehicle battery accounts for 30 to 40% of the car's total cost. Producing those batteries requires a complex, multi-stage supply chain. It stretches from lithium mines and nickel refineries to cathode materials, electrolytes, and specialized factory equipment. China spent 2 decades building that entire industrial ecosystem, while American policy dithered. As a result, the United States entered the electric vehicle competition with significant disadvantages. To catch up, American policymakers initially took bipartisan steps to encourage domestic manufacturing. Measures were designed to support onshoring and build supply chains with friendly nations. The new policies encouraged private companies to invest heavily in American battery plants, creating jobs in communities across the country. Recently, however, sudden policy shifts scrambled those economic plans. New federal legislation, known as the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, eliminated many of the clean energy incentives created in recent years. The phase-out of consumer buyer incentives removed the $7,500 tax credit for new electric vehicles built in America. At the same time, authorities did away with penalties for automakers that failed to meet fuel economy standards. The impact on Detroit was immediate. American automakers retreated from electrification plans and wrote down billions of dollars in losses. Battery manufacturers are now trying to pivot away from electric cars. They are redirecting production toward batteries for artificial intelligence data centers and drone makers. Mind you, those alternative markets are nowhere near large enough to compensate for lost car production. Electric vehicles account for 75 to 90% of total battery demand. Data centers and drones simply cannot make up for that loss. Because of this drop in car production, domestic battery demand in the United States is projected to fall. Analysts expect a drop of 25% in 2026. It is true that advanced manufacturing tax credits remain in place through 2034. But complex rules regarding foreign entities of concern are still not finalized, making those credits difficult for factories to capture. Building advanced manufacturing takes years of clear, predictable policy. When rules shift abruptly, automakers retreat, supply chains weaken, and industrial momentum stalls. That brings us to the end of our morning news for today. Thank you for spending part of your commute with the English Breakfast Club. Have a pleasant day ahead, and we will catch up again tomorrow morning.